our history with AI is like 15 years old, right? We started early on because we realized the value of data, and we were doing analytics and statistics on data for a long time, for decades.
Welcome to Technovation. I'm your host, Peter High. My guest today is Ravi Radhakrishnan. Ravi is the Executive Vice President and Chief Information Officer of American Express, a financial services institution that earns nearly $66 billion in annual revenue. In his role, he oversees the technology organization, and his responsibilities include leading the delivery and operations of technology capabilities, platforms, and services globally, as well as technology risk and information security. His team also has product management responsibility for core platforms. And recently, Ravi grew his purview to include the Chief Data Office. He's a member of the American Express Executive Committee as well. Prior to joining American Express in 2022, Ravi worked at Wells Fargo, holding several senior technology leadership roles, including that of Enterprise CIO. Ravi, welcome to Technovation. It's great to speak with you today.
Hi, Peter. Thanks for having me.
It's a great pleasure. Well, Ravi, why don't we begin, if you don't mind, with an overview of your business, certainly a brand that everyone, I would imagine, who is listening or watching this will have some familiarity with. But I would love, in your own words, to hear a bit more about the business that American Express is in.
Thank you, Peter. I'll probably start off by saying that we are an integrated payments company that provides our customers with access to products, insights, and experiences that enrich lives and builds business success. We've been around for 175 years. We recently celebrated our 175th year anniversary. And throughout all that time, Peter, Amex has stood for three things consistently: trust, security, and customer service and service, right? And technology has played a role and continues to play a key role in delivering on these values. We have a long history of responsibly employing new technologies to deliver innovative products, services, and experiences that meet the evolving needs of our customers. When I think about our business model, Peter, what I find unique is we are simultaneously a payments leader, a bank, and a premium lifestyle brand. And that's not like a common combination. And for me as a technologist and for us as technologists, and at the pace at which technology evolves, it creates unique opportunities to play across those spaces in a responsible way. But it also brings some interesting challenges and problems for us to solve. And one of my objectives over time is for American Express to be well recognized for technological differentiated capabilities, as much as we've been recognized for world-class customer service.
A great ambition, Ravi, and I'd love to understand a bit more about all that you and the team are doing on the pathway to accomplishing that. Let's talk a little bit more about your role, if you don't mind, that of Chief Information Officer. Can you describe a bit in a bit more detail your growing purview within American Express?
Probably I'll just set a bit of context, right? Technology at American Express provides the foundation for everything we do at the company. My team collaborates with every part of the company to power our growth with trust and efficiency. And all three aspects are important to us and aspiring to provide competitive differentiation, as I said, Peter. And in my mind, the role of a CIO is to kind of be that blend of like a business leader and a technology leader and kind of bring both perspectives to the table. And my team is structured to somewhat reflect that, right? So like most large-scale technology organizations, we have core horizontal functions. Think of our technology risk and information security, our global infrastructure team, our chief technology office. So those are core technology capabilities that cut across the entire company. We then also have horizontal enterprise-wide platforms that make up part of our technology organization scope. You could think of it as our digital engineering capabilities, our data platforms. We also have a collection of enterprise platforms. So think of these as our loyalty and benefits platform, our accounts receivable platform, our banking core. These serve multiple business units in the company, and my team provides technological engineering and operations for them. But in that particular instance, we also provide product management capabilities for these core enterprise platforms. So that's an additional aspect to my role as the head of this organization that we have. And then we have business aligned CIO roles, Peter, and those leaders as business CIOs sit both at my table and the business head's table. And this is one of our important constructs to create that connectivity where they are equally part of my leadership team as they are part of the leadership team of my business colleagues who head various business units in the company. So that's broadly our structure of our organization, the horizontal technology capabilities across infrastructure, security, operations, technology risk, the horizontal enterprise platforms, data, digital core platforms, for which we also provide product management, and then the business aligned CIO teams. And as you mentioned more recently, the Chief Data Office that provides product management for our data platforms and provides data governance and leads data management initiatives across the company has also become part of the organization that I have the opportunity to lead.
Fascinating, Ravi. And as I reflect upon your description of your responsibilities relative to others who hold the same title, you certainly are in a smaller club, so to say, by having product management responsibilities, the data office. There are certainly some peers that have each of those. But I wonder, as your responsibilities have grown, to what extent it's a reflection of the company's emphasis and belief in these as areas of great strategic importance in bringing that together under an executive like yourself. Can you describe that evolution from your perspective and all that it entails, if my hypothesis is in fact correct?
Great question, Peter. And I'll give you two examples that have different time context, right? The product management responsibility that I view as platform product management for enterprise platforms, our core loyalty and benefit platforms, account receivables, type of platforms, that has been in place for a while. That predates me joining American Express as the CIO in January 2022. And when they were set up as part of a structure that our current CEO, Steve, put in place as enterprise platforms, and that was part of the broader tech organization. So that aspect of having product management for a specific set of core enterprise platforms and bringing product and engineering together in that targeted context, we now have 7-8 years of experience doing that. And that's kind of served us well, bringing that product and engineering combination in targeted areas. And we view those to be suitable when there are horizontal capabilities. And hence my terminology of these are like platform product management. More recently, we brought data governance, data product management into this broader organization as we reflected on the synergies and the opportunities. When we think about data platforms and bringing data platform product management closer to data engineering of those platforms, when we think about how much of data governance and data management is enabled by the tooling for data lineage and all of the defense of data. And then last but not the least, when we reflect on AI, which I'm sure we'll touch upon, data is the fuel for AI. So we felt that bringing the Chief Data Office that includes data governance, leads enterprise data management, leads product management for data platforms, closer to the technology organization that leads engineering of those data platforms, enables the tooling of data management and data governance. And a lot of the AI enablement and generative AI enablement happens now in this kind of combined organization. We felt that that was like the right move. So one part of it we did several years ago and we've learned from it and it served well. And the other we did a few weeks ago.
Yeah, remarkable. Thank you for that overview, Ravi. As you mentioned earlier, the organization has a storied 175-year plus history now. And as with any organization with that sort of lineage, the necessity to continue to modernize is there. And I know that it's a philosophical point within American Express to continuously modernize. And I wonder how you have applied this to your organization and the actions that you are taking to set a better and longer lasting foundation for technology and for the company more generally.
The approach to modernizing, particularly complex core platforms, is a thorny issue for most large companies, right? And in your conversations with leaders across many large companies, you've seen that pattern of these are hard to do. They take institutional commitment for many years. they are complex, they have high execution risk. So they tend to get put off till you have no choice and you actually have to do it. And then once you do it, there's a view on, okay, we don't need to look at this for a very long time again, right? And for a while in Amex, and it predates me, we've had an approach on combining a continuous modernization approach with leverage of what we call foundational technology. And let me kind of talk a little bit about both of them, right? For us, foundational technology is key. When it's mature and reusable, it can drive both scale and speed. At the scale at which we operate, we want to go fast, which means you need to have reusable foundational technologies that can be applied quickly and can scale to hundreds of applications, thousands of different types of use case patterns. And we built that type of mindset and approach and a portfolio of foundational technologies over a period of time. And they're very broad ranging. You could think about, we have something called the One Amex framework, which is an actual framework of software that could be used in building digital applications and experiences. Think web applications, mobile applications. We have reusable foundational technologies that allow us to access our big data environment, our AI platforms. We use them for our identity management. So it can be in different layers of the stack, but having mature and reusable foundational technology is key to scaling while also going fast at the same time. And then we combine that with this approach of continuous modernization, not the version where we may do modernization of a set of core technologies for 2 or 3 years, stopping all other types of activities because that's like the imperative of the moment. And then we pause and not look at it for a while. So our approach here is a bit more like painting the Golden Gate Bridge, right? We have a portfolio of core components, applications, ecosystems that we think need attention all the time. And at any given time, we are always doing some modernizations actively. We are finishing some. We are planning to start some. So as an example, right now, 20 to 25% of our total technology investment is in this portfolio of continuous modernization. And that's a pretty significant number. And our philosophical approach is we manage it as a portfolio. We always think about how much of that should we do at any given point in time? Is that too little? Is that too much from an execution risk perspective? And then have a view that when we finish modernizing something, have we done it in a way architecturally that is more modular, that we can then continue to modernize parts of it as we go along, right? Hence my reference to the Golden Gate Bridge. It takes a while to paint it. And by the time you finish painting, you've got to start painting it all over again. So that thought that modernization is continuous, there's a portfolio of core systems that we need to be watchful of and know where they are in the modernization cycle, and being prepared for more and more rapid modernization cycles. So a cycle could have been every 7 to 10 years, but with the way technology is evolving, modernization may need to happen now much faster. And the more modular you are, the better it is for you to modernize it. So that's the core philosophy of continually modernizing the core foundational parts of our ecosystem using these reusable components that we call foundational technologies. Let me pause there, Peter, and see if that resonates.
It does indeed resonate. Again, a great overview. And it brings to mind the ongoing setting of a better foundation such that as you're leveraging new technologies, you're doing it in a way where you can have greater confidence that they will fully blossom. And there are a couple of different ways in which I'd like to get some more insight from you as to how you're leveraging this foundation. I'm hearkening back to your initial description of the business as one with, again, 175 plus year history of trust, security, and customer service. On that customer service point, I wanted to ask you a little bit more about the role you feel your team plays in driving better customer service. Talk a bit about your relationship with that aspect of the mantra, so to say, that you mentioned at the outset.
Yeah, I think that's a great question, Peter. I'll probably start with the data and kind of connect the dots from there, right? So data has been in our DNA for a very long time as a company. We've long recognized the strategic value of data, and have used it to drive critical decision making, our business model, but also how we serve our customers, right? We began more than 60 years ago in using data and statistics in our day-to-day operations, right? We've used it with the trust that we have gained over the years by having our customers entrust that data. We've ensured that we have protected the data, we have used it for the benefit of our customers, we've used it in a responsible way. And that's allowed us the data from our millions of customers and our merchants who accept our products has given us data-driven insights, which increasingly we've been able to apply technologies like big data, predictive AI, generative AI to both delight our customers in terms of the best customer service, protect their interests in terms of proactively detecting things like fraud before they may become aware of it, and holistically equip our customer care professionals, our frontline servicing colleagues, with technologies that combine data, insights, AI in a way that helps them serve the customers better. So if you kind of put that two aspects together, the foundational technologies and that continuous modernization mindset, along with this DNA of using data in a thoughtful, responsible way, combined with progressively more intelligent technologies, it's kind of allowed us to deliver that world-class customer experience. We think of our role as technologists to be helping power that technology-driven relationship servicing. That's probably a good way to say, right? We think of our servicing to be anchored on relationships with our members, with our customers. We aim to provide them with a 360 view, our frontline servicing colleagues of the customer. So when you call, when you chat, they are equipped with that type of information. So our role is to work with our servicing team as business partners, understand their experiences and how they serve the customers, equip them with technologies that bring this combination of data-driven insights, intelligent technologies, a full 360 view of the customer. And we do that through these modern platforms that I've talked about. A good example is recently we've been rolling out, Peter, Intuitive Servicing Portal, which is the system that our servicing colleagues use. If you were to call with them, chat with them, it brings that 360 view of the customer in front of them. And it was built reusing the 1Amex framework I mentioned earlier, the same type of frameworks that we used to build our web and mobile applications. We reused it to build this Intuitive Servicing Portal. And we had our first launch within 2 quarters. What might normally have taken several quarters, we were able to get there faster for that reason, right? So those are some examples, Peter, where we've applied that mindset of continuous modernization, reuse of foundational technologies, our DNA with data for a long period of time, using it for the benefit of the customer, using it in a trusted way, protecting the data, and applying the progressively increasing intelligent technologies all the way up to generative AI. And they all come together in this technology-powered relationship servicing.
Very well articulated. And it strikes me, Ravi, as you talk about the use of data to provide better customer service, while also being very cognizant of the necessity to, in the business you are in, ensure there's great security in the transactions people are undertaking, that those two in combination, when done well, actually build up the first aspect we talked about, trust, that these are the ingredients for more trusting relationships with your customers. Am I connecting the dots appropriately?
You're connecting it extremely well, right? We think of it as a privilege to be trusted by our customers, by our merchants with unique data. And we have to earn and re-earn that privilege and trust every single day, Peter. And the way you do it is you protect the data, you have a commitment to using it responsibly, you have a commitment to using it for the benefit of the customer. And when you do that, and when you do that over long periods of time, through changes in technology, that's trust you earn. So that's why we feel comfortable that for 175 years, our brand has been about trust, security, and service.
Very well said. Thank you, Ravi. You alluded to in a couple different places already in the conversation, artificial intelligence and the extent to which you are continuing to modernize, building a better set of data practices and data strategy, that part of the outcome of that is the ability to leverage artificial intelligence in more creative ways. And I'd love to learn more about the ways in which you are doing so. And maybe in a comparable way, you could talk a bit about the groundwork that has been laid in establishing governance, enablement, et cetera, security certainly, but then leveraging that to then better take advantage of predictive and generative AI and beyond. Talk a bit about the vision you've established within Amex, please.
I'll start, Peter, with our history with AI is like 15 years old, right? So we have a base to build upon. We started early on because we realized the value of data, and we were doing analytics and statistics on data for a long time, for decades. Circa 2010, we started implementing our first big data platform. We had other data platforms before, but this was our big data platform. And that set off the process of building predictive AI, machine learning into our core business processes. And we were one of the first financial services firms to use AI/ML successfully for fraud detection. And we have best-in-class fraud protection rates for a very long time in our industry. Within a few years of that, by call it the mid-2010s, we were using AI/ML in 100% of our credit risk and fraud models in some form or the other. All of that helped us build a foundation of doing AI. So we built up skill sets. We have multiple centers of excellence for data scientists across the company. So that helped us build our skill set in that particular area. But it also helped the foundational layers of technology, the tools needed for governance, the methodologies, the processes, the maturity of our model governance and validation type frameworks, right? So predictive AI allowed us to establish that foundation over the past 15 years or so. And it took us from fraud protection to credit risk modeling to customer service improvements to some particular types of automation to personalization of our interactions with customers. All of that came from the predictive AI side, and that laid a foundation. And then came along generative AI a few years ago. And one of the very first things we did, Peter, was we realized that generative AI would allow us to build on unique competitive advantages we had in our business model, right? I alluded to that before. We are privileged to be trusted with deep data from our customers, from our merchants, from our partners. And we have this by then decade plus experience and success with predictive AI and using it in a responsible way for the benefit of the customer in a way that enhances trust, as you called out. So we very early on decided we were going to leverage that and we were going to build on those experiences. We set up a Generative AI Council that included not only technology leaders, our digital labs leaders, our enterprise strategy leaders, because they provided different perspectives of our business model, but also our risk functions. We included leaders from our legal function. We included leaders from our global risk and compliance function. And by ensuring that we had that perspective of risk management from the start, even though in the moment, it may have felt a little bit like we could go faster by kind of taking care of those things later, we decided very intentionally that it was very important to be thinking about responsible use of this technology, even in experimenting and testing and learning from the start. So that was one ingredient to our governance. So this Generative AI Council that I co-chair and has membership across key functions, horizontal functions in the company, sets the strategy for our use of generative AI, governs the use of generative AI. We review use cases. We decide, is it appropriate just because we can do it? Should we do it? As an example. Very quickly, we built additional constructs around it. I'll mention a couple. We have a risk council that's associated with generative AI, where all the risk stripe leaders, so think of data risk, privacy risk, information security risk. There are many different risks that get impacted by use of AI and Gen AI. They are all together. And whenever we are thinking about doing something with generative AI as a use case, they form an initial risk assessment of the inherent risk. They recommend mitigations. They become part of what comes to the council for assessment on if we should move forward. And the last component we added was what we call an enablement layer. We kind of used the playbook we did with predictive AI, and we built an enablement layer that includes the kinds of things you would expect. An abstraction that allows us to interact with multiple large language models. We work with multiple vendors. And large language models could run on the cloud, it could run on premise in our private cloud. So that abstraction layer that allows us to access models and switch models as needed. It also includes our trust layer. So that's our AI firewall that ensures that the interactions we have with the large language models are filtered appropriately, both on the input and output. So there are about 15 or so enablers: our data governance, security, model governance and validation, our core frameworks that kind of create reusable recipes. People could be doing various forms of summarization. How could we make it easier for them to implement summarization use cases? So these are all, Peter, what we consider together to be the enablement layer. So these three constructs, the Generative AI Council that included both an experimentation lens, a growth lens, a risk management lens right from the beginning, a risk council that has all the risk stripes looking at it in a holistic way, and this enablement layer that took us a little while to build, but as we built it, it's allowed us to scale. It's allowed us to switch things. It's allowed us to try things more efficiently. So that's kind of been our journey in getting to generative AI. And we've implemented several impactful use cases in servicing. We've implemented use cases with code generation, code completion assistance. We've implemented generative AI in our mobile search, where in the background, it's helping understand intent of our customers. So it's making our searches more effective for them. There's less reason for them to call someone about an issue because they can find that information ourselves. We've infused Gen AI in our chatbots to understand the intent of the customer and then guide them through the right set of predetermined actions. With everything we've done so far, we've had human oversight, but we are beginning to test and learn on a few use cases where our customers directly access the large language models, and those are still in testing.
Great overview again. Thank you so much for that, Ravi. I wanted to ask you, you mentioned through the course of your response the understandable nature of the building of relationships, that you have multiple vendors, multiple LLMs that you are leveraging. And I wonder, as you think about curating an ecosystem relevant to all that you described, coupled with no doubt internal capabilities and internal building as well, how you think about the curation of that ecosystem and its ongoing evolution as time goes on.
Peter, ecosystem is a good word for it. When we think about the state of generative AI and the number of different partners that we currently work with and anticipate working with it, it is a large collection of very different type of partners. And it's an ecosystem across the cloud providers, the large language model providers, many of whom are cloud providers, could be open source models. Some of the models could run in the public cloud. Some could be run on a private cloud on-premise. Smaller, innovative, nimble firms providing key orchestration type services. And our approach towards working with this ecosystem of diverse partners and providers is to use a variety of different ways to stay connected. Everything ranging from engagements with academia that we have several of around the world, our industry research partnerships, the close partnerships we have with our strategic tech partner vendors through constructs such as executive briefings. We also have an Amex Ventures arm that helps us stay connected with the innovation ecosystem. We have a pretty active corporate development where we do M&A type activities. So the range of all of those combined with our enterprise enablement layer that I talked about. So it's one thing to have an ecosystem of partners, but you have to be able to operationally execute with them. And our enablement layer allows us to access different model providers, allows us to work with different types of technologies in the orchestration layer, yet all of them follow consistent risk management practices. They'll go through our trust layer in an appropriate way. They'll kind of follow different aspects of our governance that's required. So that's how, Peter, we think about this space. It's too early to have a small number of partners to work specifically with. And it's a rapidly evolving space where you do need to have the flexibility in your enablement to trust and learn, to try and learn and experiment in safe ways what works, what doesn't work, and be able to switch things around.
Makes sense. I like the way you describe that, Ravi. And I wonder, given the experimentation that you do, as well as the variety of sources that you have, as you noted, at your fingertips to help you understand what the state of the art entails, and perhaps be involved in some of the ongoing thinking about the potential application of the state of the art back to American Express. As you look to the future, what excites you as you think about the ongoing evolution of the value that might be provided in the use of artificial intelligence?
I'm excited by a handful of trends, Peter, and I think they're all playing out. Agentic AI certainly is going to take the value proposition to another level. I'm also very intrigued to see how we evolve in the governance of AI technology beyond what we have discussed, right? How do we over time ensure the AI models are doing what they're supposed to be doing? How do we measure accuracy? How do we measure trustworthiness of an outcome? And particularly for a company like ours and our brand, those kinds of problem statements are very relevant and very interesting. So I would say that's another area. The evolution of more specialized, smaller language models in particular domains relative to large language models is another area with AI evolution that I'm interested in. Intersections of AI with other types of transformative technologies is also interesting, right? And quantum computing comes to mind. How the two of trends can play off each other, right? How can AI maybe make quantum coding, language adoption easier in one direction? And does quantum computing provide more efficient computing for certain types of problems that today are not that energy efficient? So that's probably several different dimensions to keep an eye on. But I would probably call out one other theme that isn't necessarily a technical theme that we are keeping a close eye on, and I'm especially interested in. How does all of this change the roles of knowledge workers? What we as knowledge workers do is writing historically, and now it's changing into more editing, where you're getting drafts and versions, right? So that change is different, right? The mindset of taking draft versions and editing them is different. The mindset of reviewing something and then realizing that there is something slightly off an editor could do. And that could be, a skill set we need to develop. So there are some technical trends, agentic AI, small language models, intersections with quantum. There are some risk management governance type trends on how do we continue to measure the efficacy of how is AI working. And then there is some, for want of a better word, social type trends on what does it do to the nature of work, are different dimensions of what I'm intrigued by.
And a number of areas for us to keep our eyes peeled on the continued progress relative to each. Very interesting topics you've raised, certainly, Ravi. And I wanted to hear at the close, knowing that you are somebody who draws from a diverse array of sources for inspiration, I wonder if there's anything you've recently read, watched, and or listened to that you particularly recommend to your peers.
Yeah, I'm going to give you two instances of things that were on my mind as I was thinking about this conversation. I'm a huge science fiction fan. I read, watch everything that's science fiction. And recently I went back and rewatched the Foundation series that's on Apple. It's based on Isaac Asimov's Foundation series of books. Many people might know Asimov from the 3 Laws of Robotics, but in this particular case, what struck me was this science fiction notion of psychohistory that Asimov had introduced in the Foundation series, right? Which is effectively using math statistics and some form of AI to predict the future, not at an individual level, but at a humanity level, right? And given some of what we just discussed with, it just feels interesting to reflect on, does the path of AI continue in a way that its capabilities can go in that type of a direction? Clearly, it's a science fiction notion that you can predict what humanity might do, not only years from now, but millennia from now. So that kind of is something that I would say is topical, but it's also a pretty hard series of books to adapt into a TV series. And I feel the producers and the directors have done a good job. So that's one I would recommend. Something completely different that certainly caught my attention was a TV series called The Pit that's right now on Max. And it's 15 hours in the life of a fictional hospital's emergency room in Pittsburgh, right? It's got some parallels to ER from a few decades ago, but seeing the healthcare professionals in action in a realistic depiction of the current state of healthcare, what caught my attention was the human element. Clearly, they have tons of like training and experience in what they do, and they have, in various cases, sophisticated technologies that they can employ. But it's that human element they bring to the decision making on what they do and the incredible pressure, right? And it's truly life or death. And seeing that come through, very well portrayed, very accurately portrayed, it certainly caught my attention too in that theme of kind of technology plus human notion, and here that human element really jumped out. So those are two things, Peter, I would say. The Foundation series on Apple and the Pit on Max would be a couple of things I would recommend to my peers.
Well, Ravi, thank you for those recommendations. And more generally, thank you for a terrific conversation. It's been inspiring to hear more about the work that you and your team are doing to expand the capabilities of the company, a storied company, and ensure that it is continuing to thrive in the digital age. I appreciate you sharing so many great insights and the methods that you and your team are using. Thank you so much, Ravi.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you for having me.